Okay guys, today's video is on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and a flight. And I don't pretend to be a pilot of any kind. I don't have a pilot's license. I don't know anything really about aircraft. I fly the big aircraft, the A320 Neo, fly-by-wire aircraft. So just to let you know, I don't do anything in any particular correct order. And what I do is my method, and it works for me. So let's get into this. First of all, you can just jump right into the game and pull up a flight plan and fly. But I like to log my time and get credit for my time that I'm flying. So I fly with a virtual airline called Canadian Virtual Airlines. Join there, and I can log my hours on there. So this is where you would go to book your flights and get them ready for your flight for the day. So I'm logged in here right now. So let's go in and book a flight from Kelowna to Vancouver. Kelowna is Charlie Yankee Lima Whiskey. Oh, whoops. Charlie Whiskey. There we go. And let's see if we can find a flight. I know there's a short one here. Kelowna to Vancouver. Here it is right here. So the flight number is CBA 6242, leaving Kelowna, arriving at Vancouver. Here's the times. The aircraft, I'll be flying in a different aircraft. And the total time, 45 minutes. So let's add this to our bid. Let's bid on this flight. And now we'll book that flight. That's all I need to do at this particular website. Now you could, like I said, just go in the game and fly. But I like to get my flight plan from a place called SimBrief. And this will build the flight plan for me. So let's go to Dispatch. And let's get a flight here from Kelowna to Vancouver. Okay, we'll go to create a new flight. And top left corner, airline. We're with the CVA airline, Canadian Virtual Airlines. The flight number was CVA 6242. So we'll put 6242 here. And we are departing Charlie Yankee Lima Whiskey, which is Kelowna. Vancouver is Charlie Yankee Victor Romeo. And it'll automatically fill in an alternate airport. We'll pick our airframe, which is the A320 fly-by-wire. And it shows you a flight plan here. And because it's a sim, it's telling me we're going to take off from runway 34, and it's taken into account the weather right now at Vancouver, or at Kelowna, and it puts the arrival runway at 8 right at weather at the moment. But in real life, you probably wouldn't know this until you get close to Vancouver on what runway you're going to land at. But this is a sim, and it gives that to me right now. So let's generate our flight. And this is a part that we can pull into our game and pull it into the electronic flight bag. And today we'll be flying at an altitude of 36,000 feet. And that tells you right here. So let's generate the PDF file. And zoom in a little closer because there's some data I need off of the SimBrief data file here, like our block fuel right here. This is the amount of fuel that is in the aircraft ready to go, full amount of fuel. And it's 4,012. So 4.1 tons. Wrote that down. And then we'll go down to the runways, or takeoff runway, which was runway 34. We need the QNH. Here's runway 34. And the QNH is 30.28. We gotta take note of that. And the QNH for the landing runway, which was 08, right, is 30.17. Okay, back to the top. This is all we need from here, but I'll just scroll down to the route, or the flight plan itself, which is right here, because I'm going to need some of that data. And let's pull this off of our main screen, down onto the screen below, and you're presented with... Now, when you start up the game, Flight Simulator 2020, this is what you're presented with. And we go to the world map, and our starting airport from will be Kelowna. And we have Kelowna. And because I'm using the flight plan from SimBrief, I don't need to fill out the flight plan on Flight Simulator through here. So all I would really need is just departing airport. And we're going to take off runway 34, which is down here. So I want to start, if you spawn up on the runway, your engines will be running, ready to go. All you got to do is take off. I don't want that. I want to start cold and dark, nothing running, everything off. Let's pick a starting point near the entrance of this runway here. All these white dots are starting parking spots. Gate number 9. Let's start right there. So gate number 9, we want to depart right from there. And the time of day we'll pick. We can pick any time of day. You can see we can pick nighttime, or let's pick 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And weather, we'll go with real weather. Live traffic. If there is any, there's no live player. There's no other live players online or friends or anything. We'll leave it at that, and then we'll set the time back to time that I want it to go there. 5 o'clock. There we go. Okay, and then we're starting at the parking gate. Let's click fly. And we should start at the parking stall number 9. Cold and dark. Give it a moment. All right, here is just a short view of the airport itself. And let's see where it puts us right here. Okay, let's get started. Let's go to the game. And here we are, cold and dark. This is what it looks like. We'll take an outside view. And this is Kelowna. And we are very, very close to the runway that I'm going to take off from. And I'm assuming that that's it right there, runway 34. So when I do a pushback, I need to go tail to the left. Back and tail to the left. Okay, let's call up the flight bag and see if we can pull in our flight plan that we made from SimBrief. And here it is here, Kelowna to Vancouver. And the alternate was CYQQ, which is Comox. That's the alternate airport. Okay. What we need to do right now, first of all, is make sure that the realism is set to fast instead of instant. I don't like it set on instant. Okay, services. let us get the jetway over here so people can get boarded. And we'll open the doors and everything. Ground power, cargo doors, baggage. We don't need any aft doors. We'll do the catering truck. Okay, let's see how things are turning out now. The power truck is coming in to give us some power so we can get power to everything. The baggage truck is pulling in to get our baggage loaded. And the catering truck is pulling up and going to do some catering for us. And the jetway is ready and we can start loading people, I guess. And today we have 118 people coming on board. Let's start loading. And you can see here they're starting to populate the seats. And as far as fuel goes, we're going to have to pull in all of our data here first, which we did. So our fuel is 4.1 tons. You can see there it's already populated, and we'll make sure we have that amount. And here is our data sheet. And our block fuel was 4.1. And the route is right here. I might need that in a minute. Okay. We can calculate our takeoff.
Boarding completed.
Boarding is completed. Okay. V1, VR, and V2 are all at 131 knots. Okay, that's good, 131 knots. Okay, boarding is completed. Let's go to the overhead and turn on the external power. Turn on the APU.
Ladies and gentlemen from the flight deck, on behalf of myself and the captain and first officer and cabin crew, I'd like to take this time to welcome you aboard our flight. We're just wrapping up some paperwork up front here and waiting to receive final numbers from the ground crew, then we'll be on our way. Flight attendants will be coming through the cabin shortly with a very important safety briefing. We do ask that you give them your full, undivided attention as they review the safety operations of this Airbus aircraft. We do appreciate your business. To make your flight any more enjoyable, please don't hesitate to ask. Welcome aboard.
Okay, I'm popping on the these gauges here that I want to run on my secondary monitor. This one here, the primary flight display, the PDF. This one here is the ND, the navigation display. And this one here is the ECAM, that's the engine and warning display right there. And sometimes we'll take a look at the TCAS, which is a traffic warning system. And then we have the EFIS here, which sets up the QNH, and the QNH for this air excuse me, you might as well set the QNH in here, which was 30.28. So we'll turn 30.28. That gives our proper altitude off the ground, 30.28 here. And we are flying at 36,000 feet. So we'll dial that in, 36,000 feet today. That was done over here. Okay, I need to turn some lights on so that I can see my gauges down here a little better. And up top. Okay, our flight plan. We can bring in our flight plan from SimBrief. We go to ATSU, and then the AOC menu in it. And here we'll request the data. And you can see it's Kelowna, to Vancouver. We'll go to the init page, and this will populate everything. Kelowna to Vancouver, alternate, Comox. 6242 was our flight number. 36,000 feet, and it's minus 51 degrees. Okay, let's now go to the flight plan itself and fill out our departure, which was runway 34. And on the flight plan, it looks like we're departing on the Murty 3, changed now to the Murty 5 departure. We'll put that in there. And as far as the arrival, it's runway 08, 08 right. These are 08 left. Here's right. 109.5. Gotta make note of that. 109.50. And IRV is the identifier, or IVR, and it's at 84 degrees. And this is the runway we're going to land on. In the sim, we can do this early. And our arrival is the Canuck 5. This one here. We'll insert this. Okay, and let's go to the RadNav page and fill out our frequency of 109.5, was it? And the identifier was India Victor Romeo. Victor Romeo. And it's this one here, closest one. And it filled out the degrees for us, landing degrees. Okay, on to the perf page. Now, 131 was the numbers we have to put in here for the V1. 131 knots across the board, so we'll do 131 for the VR. V1 is a speed that you must, when you've attained V1, which is 131 knots, you cannot stop anymore. You must take off. VR comes next, happens to be 131 knots also, which is you should raise your wheels off the ground, your front wheels, lift off. And V2 is a speed, which happens to be the same speed again, that your aircraft can attain lift and continue flying. And we need a flaps of 1. And we will set the flaps to 1. Okay, the next phase, the next phase, and the next phase, and the next phase. And here we'll set the landing flaps to condition 3. And the QNH, excuse my voice, the QNH here was 30.7 at that landing. So 30.17. Or 30.17. And the temperature there is, let's find out from our flight plan here, the temperature in Vancouver at the time is 7, and the wind is 90 degrees and 10 knots. 90 degrees and 10 knots and 7 degrees. So 7 degrees temperature and 90. And what was that? 90 and 2? 10. 90 and 10. 10 knots for the wind. Transition altitude, 18,000 feet. Now, the barrel, which we need to fill in here, the barrel, so we get our right altitude for landing. 200 feet above 200 feet above the runway. And how I find that out is by the charts. And I downloaded a picture of the charts right here of Vancouver and runway 08 right here, left or right, 08 right, and the elevation for this runway is 10 feet. So we got to put in our baro 210 feet. So let's pull this back down to the... I have 3 monitors set up here, so I pull that down into the other monitor. And then I have another monitor down below where I keep all my gauges. Okay, we need a 210 put into the baro. Oops, I missed the 2 there. 210. So at 200, at 200 feet above the runway, it's going to say minimums, and if I don't see the runway at that particular time, I must go around. Okay, we've got that done. Let's go to the perf page. Make sure that everything is filled out in here. Go to the init page and page 2 and put in our 0 fuel weight and our block fuel, which was 4.1, and it put in 2.4, which is not right. So 4.1, we'll put that in the block fuel. Okay, I believe the flight plan is all ready to go. And if we have a look at it on this gauge here, I can step through. Well, I guess I can't quite see what I'm doing over here. Okay, oops. I can step through and you can follow the line, how it looks. All the magenta numbers are constraints. I must follow those altitudes and speeds. And it goes all the way. We're doing good. Now we have a discontinuity here. Let's get back to this one here. Discontinuity, which we have to fix it. There's a gap in the... We didn't know where to go from there, so we'll fix the gap. Now it goes from Vinlow to Bubule. And it continues on, and no more discontinuities. So there is our flight plan. And we'll have an arc view. Let's start the engines. All the people are loaded. And we have power. Let's turn some lights on. Our wing lights, our logo lights, our taxi lights.
Flight attendants, armed doors, and cross-check.
Let's turn this no smoking sign on and the seat belt signs. And get ready for pushback. Okay, let's do an engine start. And I think we should be able to have a look down here. 5 or 6. Maybe number 7. Okay, let's turn the ignition on. We're working right in here. Engine number 2. And let's see what that is. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn on the bleeds. We need APU bleed. We need some power there to go. Okay. Let's get back to here again. Number 7. And let's turn engine number 1 on. And check up here to make sure N1 is rising. And we've actually got power this time. N2 is rising, and when it gets to 60 we'll be okay, and it's just to 20. In the meantime, let's turn on the TCAS so that other aircraft can see us and we can see other aircraft in the air. Get warning signs. And you can see this is rising, and you'll hear a click when it's started. And there was the click. So we'll start engine number 1. N2 is rising. And then you can see both engines, and when we get the click, we can turn the ignition switch to normal. Let's arm the spoilers and flaps to 1, which we've already got. Parking brake is on. We've almost got engine 1 started. We've got our flight in the, that's the click. We can now turn the ignition off, and we can...
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Let's turn the terrain on the ND on the co-pilot side so we can have a look at that. Let's turn the auto brake to max. The wheels are down. Okay, I think we are ready to go. We need some pushback, and we want to go tail to the left. And you can see the truck over here. Let's call him up. We've got everybody aboard. And let's get the jetway to move away. Close the doors. Remove ground power. And let's make sure that the truck is pulling up. When we... Okay, let's call him over. Pushback. And let's call the tug. Engines are started, people are loaded, cargo is loaded, all fueled up, we are ready to go. Get the tug in position, he can push us back and to the left, tail to the left. So let's make sure that he goes back, and was it to the left? Yeah, because I want to taxi out this way. So back and to the left. And I want to make sure it's an extreme to the left. Okay, how come it's not going backwards? Oh, there we go. Okay, let's have a look outside, see if we're ready for the tug. Yes, we'll release the parking brakes and restart a push. And it's becoming dusk already. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. So we need our nose to be pointed roughly in this direction here. So we can taxi down this runway to runway 34 down here. I'm thinking anyway. Let's have a look, see if that really was 34. Yeah, that's where we gotta go. Alright, I'm thinking that's going to be good about there. So let's put on the parking brake. Detach the tug. And we are ready for taxi. Let's turn on the oh, looks like we have the headlights on, so. And I like to pull my screen up on top there so that I can't quite see the top gauge because I have that actual gauge down below. Let's give it a little gas, turn off the parking brake, give it a little gas. We're in Kelowna. All right, let's get started. In real life, you wouldn't hear all this noise, the wheels and all that, the noise like that. But, okay, we are at V1, rotate V2. So, positive rate, gear up. Auto throttle is on. We'll turn autopilot on here in a minute. So we get to a certain altitude. And let's put flaps up. Autopilot on. And pull the throttles back to climb. And we are off. So let's have a look and see here. Let's go to number 2. Okay, we are going to a flight level of 360, so 36,000 feet. We don't see any speed here because it's managed. If we were, if it was open speed, then we'd see a number here, and I would be doing the speed. The aircraft is doing the speed for us. We're now at 220 knots, and we got to stay 250 knots or below up until 10,000 feet. And let's go over here a little farther. So you can see we are now at 7,000 feet and we're at 220 knots. And when we get to 10,000 feet, that's when we turn the Q&H to standard, turn all the landing lights off at that altitude, and we'll let the passengers get up and walk around. Coming up on 10,000 feet shortly, and we'll change the Q&H above 10,000 to just a standard. And all aircrafts are above 10,000 on standard. Okay, switches to standard, and you can see now we're at 10,000, and now it will climb to 3,000 or 36,000 feet. And the reason we're staying at 220 knots is because we have a restriction. You can see here in magenta color. The flight plan calls that we must stay at 220 knots or below until we hit this Vatsim intersection here, which we are almost at. It's about 5 miles away. So once we get there, it'll go to 250 knots. We can see that our engines are doing fine. And let's have an outside view. Now you get all the noises. You get the sound of the engines. Now if I zoom in, and when I go behind the aircraft, you can see the distortion, even burning the fuel. Look at that. Wow. Total distortion when you're that far, when you're that close to the engines. And turn the lights off. And heading over the mountains. Okay, let's turn the APU bleed off and the APU off, and passenger signs, our smoking sign is off, and the belts are signed, they're off. Let's turn on flaps 3 condition, and everything is looking good as far as the overhead goes. And now the aircraft just follows the flight plan and going to the proper altitudes and speed restrictions. Let me just, you see this here gauge, these three major gauges here, this one here, the PDF, primary flight display, the ND, the navigation display, and the ECAM, that's the engine and warning display. And then these are the co-pilots. But I have these three gauges on a 15-inch monitor below this 27-inch monitor here. So all I have to really see from here is like just out the window, maybe zoom in a little farther, like that, or get rid of the front altogether and sort of fly like this and take the airplane away. And just fly like that out that window. But I like with the see a little bit here. So, like I was saying, these three gauges I have on a 15-inch monitor. And then I have another 10-inch monitor, touchscreen below this 27 with all the other data that I can call up on the internet. I need to go to charts or call in my SIMBRI flight plan or go to the Canadian Virtual Airlines. So that one I use for. And then I have also a tablet that I actually use for this instrument right here, and this is called the McDo, or the how come I have a discontinuity here? The McDo, or the MCDU, and the MCDU is the multi-purpose control and display unit. Multi-purpose control and display unit, the MCDU, or the McDo, as I will refer to it. Okay, let's just see here. We are now in a turn. You can see the horizon has changed. We are at 23,000 feet, and we are at 290 knots, and climbing. All right. Now it's a matter of twiddling your thumbs until you get close to Vancouver. Okay, it looks like we have a bit of a headwind. A 52 knot headwind. We are at 35,000 feet. We're coming up on 36,000 very shortly here. And let's have a look at the gauges down below. You can see where we're at. We are at 35,300 feet, and this little blue arrow here shows us our top of climb. When we hit that little, we should be at 36,000 feet, and it's pulling up here. We can't go any faster than these red marks here, and it's settling in at 260 knots, and it's actually set at a Mach speed instead of that, a Mach speed of 0.784 Mach. And let's just have a look and see what the engines are doing. It's 87%. We still have fuel on board, 3 tons.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again from the flight deck, your captain speaking. We've just reached our cruising altitude for the flight, and again to settle in, I do want to remind you to please keep your feet and elbows clear from the aisle, as the flight attendants will be coming through the cabin with galley carts shortly. Also, one more reminder to please refrain from congregating near the front galley where the flight deck door is located. Thank you.
All right, the crew telling everybody they can get up and relax there. We're at flight level. they can get up and move around if they wish. I guess you can see this part here too. This is what I see anyway. Now, if you wanted to see the terrain on this side, we'll turn it on. Let's see if I can kind of explain the terrain gauge on the ND here. Supposedly, there is no blue showing up because we're not over any water right here, but when we get close to Vancouver, you'll see water in blue. Now, the almost black areas are a few thousand feet above sea level, and then the darker green is higher up. And there is an actual chart that tells you what the actual height is here. And then the lighter green is higher, and then this looks like even a lighter green here. This is probably 3,600 feet. So 3,000 feet. When it starts getting into red in the mountains and stuff, the high mountains, it'll be turning red and yellow, orange. We may get some of that here, but let's zoom out a little farther and see what we can get. There's our whole flight plan. We're almost a straight line all the way through. The magenta numbers are restrictions. We must hit certain points of the flight plan at these restrictions. Like this one's here is 250 knots, above 10,000 and below 14,000. So in between those. So below 14,000 but above 10,000. I don't see any red or orange, and I think it's relative to what my altitude is. If I was lower, these colors would be there. I don't think there's a weather gauge in this particular aircraft. It would be nice to find weather in here that would show you extreme weather and things. This is terrain. And I can't see the other parts then when I have that on, so set it to a 40 mile range from me, 40 miles out, and 360 knots, 260 knots at 3,600 feet, and we are above the clouds. Sometimes the clouds are way above us yet, even at this altitude. No co-pilot. My goodness. Have a coffee. There, have a drink. Poof. Back up a little bit more. Okay. We will set the altitude. That one I said was below 14,000 but above 10. So below 14, let's go 12. Let's go for 12,000 and set the altitude to 12,000 and see if we can make it there by that time. Looks like we're going to be close. We are now at 27,000 feet. This game relies a lot on your internet speed. And where I'm at, where I live, my internet speed is the slowest there is in the building. So I'm surprised that I don't get a lot more of those little stop things because of my internet speed. Because I've got several websites I've got up online, I've got the charts up online, I've got other things up online, all running at the same time, so I'm surprised that it's working that well. So let's go down and have a look and see where we're coming out to. It's situated straight here. Zoom in a little closer so we can see. Okay. We are at 24,000 feet and heading down. We are now coming up to a intersection called, or a waypoint called Lane, and you can see here it says 250 knots, so we have to be 250 knots when we get there. So I have to make sure that the aircraft is going to try to come down to 250 knots. I've got it on a pretty steep descent here, so we can back off on that a little bit. That's just a restriction. So we got to be between 14,000 and 10,000 feet at that point, and we won't quite make it there, but we're at 19 now. And then the next waypoint after Lanes is Mills. There's no restriction at Mills whatsoever. And then the next waypoint after Mills is Basra, and it says plus 10. So it needs to be 10,000 feet when we get there. And I don't think we'll make that one. That's going to be like pretty low, or we won't be able to make that. Okay, after Basra would be Sebog at 8, Atlex at 5. Okay, it's telling us all the way, so here we go. Let's go this way. Zoom back out a bit. And we're getting into the clouds here. I'll just watch on the gauge here and set it accordingly. And when we get close to 10,000 feet, we will turn the running lights on and the seatbelt signs and the no smoking signs on. Get everybody seated. We're at 16,000 feet. And just about at Mills to make our turn to the right. Vancouver and the runway is actually straight ahead of us. Okay, we're on our turn. Let's see if we turn this on now, what we get. There you can see some blue. Oops, some blue. That's the ocean. The black is black. Well, very, 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 very dark green. That's closest next to the height of the ocean, probably several hundred feet. And then the lighter the green gets, then the higher up. So, but you can see I can't see flight plan when that's on there. You can see reflections in the window. Okay, we are at 12,000 feet. So let's get close and turn the landing lights on, seatbelt signs on, and the no smoking signs on. Is that on or just on auto? Maybe just put that on auto is good. Okay. We are in the soup. And we've got to be at 210 knots at mid-low too, so I'll dial in 210 knots at least so that it comes down to that speed. And you can see here I dialed in 210 and 10,000 feet. And the next waypoint actually is 5. So let's turn that to, well, 3 is at bub. So we'll try 3. We'll get down to 3 anyways. And pulling up in through the clouds. And the barometric pressure was 30.17. 30.17. So we get our altitude correct. We're at 9,000 feet. 9,000 feet. And the flaps are set to 3. All the lights are on. No smoking is on. Seat belts are on. Getting near the end of the flight plan. Speed limit exceeded. That's because we were trying to go too low there. Or trying to get lower fast, so I sped up. Should be all right now though. We are at 7,000 feet, going down to 3,000. You can see here I've set, so we won't go any lower than that because of the restriction at Vinlow. Vinlow says 3,000 feet, and this waypoint after that is 3,000 feet. So. And then we'll be making a right-hand turn downwind of the runway, so we can turn left again and straight in. So right now we're right over the ocean. Ooh, I can see rain. It's raining. Hopefully we'll break out of the clouds here soon. We're coming up on our 3,000 foot. We're at 35. All right. And making our left turn. I just turned on the landing system. And the landing system, I'll show you what that is. That's a little button right here, the landing system. Turn it on, turn it off. You can see that the little diamonds appear. This one here is when you're lined up straight on the runway. This will come to the center. And this one here will come down as you pick up the glide slope. It's a beam down to the runway, and when this comes to this line here, then it will descend to the runway on a perfect slope to land. So we are on a left turn, and now we're heading into our left turn to the final. And I could let you see this a little bit here. I'll turn on the localizer, which was this button here, and that will monitor this purple diamond. And when it comes up to you can see how the runway is this way, and we're headed this way. So when it finds that we're going to be lined up this way, it'll turn and move this purple dot to the center line, and we're lined up straight on the runway. Purple, magenta, whatever color. And we are at 210 knots, and I'll put flaps down one. And you can see the purple or the magenta. It should, unless it overflies a little bit and come back, but it should center itself eventually. You can see the horizon. It's locking in on that, centering us on the runway. And when this one, when the beam gets to the right point for our aircraft to come down at a certain angle, this will come down and will capture that glide slope, and then the aircraft will descend on its own down to the runway. So let's zoom in here a little bit, down to a 10-foot or a 10-mile radius. You can see in the very top here.
From the flight deck, ladies and gentlemen, as you may have noticed, we have begun our initial descent down to our destination. Now would be a good time to wrap up any business you need to take care of as we prepare for our approach. If you are up, once you return to your seat, we ask that you remain seated until the aircraft arrives safely at the gate. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for arrival.
All right, cabin crew telling everybody what to do. Remain seated. We're coming in for a landing. Down to 180 knots. And the magenta dot is coming down. So I'll have to press the approach button. And autopilot 2. So now when it will stay at 3,000 feet until that purple dot gets here, and then it'll start descending for us straight to the runway. Now you can see that it's a little crooked here. It's not straight, and that is because we have a headwind, kind of a head crosswind, 25 knots. So it's pushing us. So we're going to be a crosswind landing. We are now going to capture the glide slope, and you can see this line here, and we're dropping in altitude. So let's put the flaps down to 2. On this gauge here, you can see that the runway is right here, and that's the 7.5 mile mark. When the runway gets to be about 5-6 miles out, I'll put the gear down. Make sure that we have our proper speeds dialed in. 180 knots at the moment. Go down to 160. We're coming down and we can't see the runway at all yet. We're at 2,200 feet. 2,000 feet, he says. Okay, let's put the gear down.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
I can see the runway. So we're good to land. We'll dial in 135 knots for landing. And flaps 3. Landing gears down. And just to check, you can see the diamonds here. I'll keep the top gauge there so you can see what's going on. 1,000 feet above. And we're at 140, 135 knots. And we're getting ready to turn off the autopilot. And when I pull back on the throttles, the auto throttle should come on by itself.
$500.
Minimum should be coming up shortly.
400.
Should be coming up shortly at about 200.
300.
Which means if you don't see the runway at about this particular time, you must
100
go
above.
Yeah,
200.
right there. Minimums is 210.
Minimum
Right.
100.
Okay. Autopilot off.
50. 40. 30. 20.
Throttle off.
10.
Auto throttle.
5.
And reverse thrust. I thought it was raining. So, we want to turn off to the right, or to the left, pardon me. And where is a good place? Right here. Now, when you're flying online with ATC, they would tell you what runway or what taxiways to turn off on, and so on and so forth, and guide you to a gate. But because we're in the game and there is no live ATC, we just find our own way. There's the tower. Not that we have to go there, but let's just pick a spot here. You see other aircraft here, so. Is there a parking spot? Let's just park right here. Yes, we don't. We'll call the trucks over to get the people off and what have baggage. And parking brakes on. And in actuality, that is the end of our flight. So I'll just press escape. That ends our flight there. So now if we go to Canadian Virtual Airlines again, where we booked our flight, and we go view our booked flights, and here it is here. VGA 6242, Kelowna to Vancouver. That's the flight that we booked when we first started. Let's go to File PIREP. Here's the flight. There's myself flying for Canadian Virtual Airlines. Their 6242 is the flight number from Kelowna to Vancouver. The aircraft we flew in was the A320. And the fuel used, we'll find out what the fuel used. I think it was 4.1 tons. So 4.1 tons. And the time was 45 minutes, so we'll put 45. I would actually time myself and then put my real time in there. And I'll put in here manual PIREP, because that's how I filed it. And we'll file that flight. And off it goes. And you can see all my past flights. And this is the latest. Now it's waiting for approval. So when I go to the home page, I can see here that there's another flight coming up by a fellow by the name of Miles. He's going to do a flight today from Toronto to MDPC. I don't know where that is. It's in Mexico, maybe someplace. And this was the flight that I done just now, just finished. Thanks for coming along with me, guys, today on this my Flight Simulator 2020 flight from Kelowna to Vancouver. I hope you enjoyed it, and put any comments you like down below. I'll respond to all of them. And as usual, guys, stay awesome, my friends. And we'll catch you guys all on my next one.